But what we wanted to do, and we want to share, first I guess I need to thank Bobby Macedo. Thank you for the invite, and thank you for the committee to invite us here today. But what we want to do is we want to talk about leadership. And why that's important to not only just people that are at the CEO level like Brooks, but also at the CIO level, at the supervisory or chief level in IT or manager level, project manager level. Leadership is very important to what we do. So today I'm gonna let Brooks start out, and he's gonna talk a great deal about leadership, which he knows a great deal about. He's going into his 20th year as county executive. Well, he's in his 20th year as county executive. He also is 16 years as our prosecuting attorney at Oakland County. And he actually uses his computer regularly. He does. But his innovative leadership over the years have brought forth programs. He's going to talk about some of those today. But brought forth programs that are going to set up the future of Oakland County. In other words, don't just think about what we need to do today, but think about what we need to do for tomorrow. He knows that when many of his programs really take off, well, they're already taking off, but really grow to maturity, he may not be county executive at that time, and he's okay with it. That's true leadership. That's true vision, when you can go ahead and start a program knowing that it's going to take years to mature and know that the benefit's going to be there for future generations. So I'm excited to be up on the stage with Brooks. And then when Brooks is done with his part of the program, I'm going to talk a little bit about technology and leadership and some of the issues that we have to deal with from that regard. So Brooks, take it away.
That about wraps it up, folks, right there. It always happens during introduction that the gentleman who precedes you and steals your good lines. First of all, thank you for the invitation to appear here. And Phil and I have been looking forward to this. We've sort of got a ham and egg it up here a little bit. And I was getting ready for this appearance and had no idea the crowd was this large. But getting ready for it the last couple of days, gathering my thoughts, and I said to my secretary, Kelly, in your wildest dreams, did you ever think that I would be speaking to the Project Management Institute Spring Symposium? She said, with all due respect, Mr. Patterson, you're not in my wildest dreams. My days go like that. I had another incident a couple of days ago. I work out with a trainer a couple of days a week, and it's a small class, about 4 or 5 of us, and this new gal showed up, particularly attractive, toned. I think the word would be voluptuous. And so I called my trainer over. I said, Dan, what machine should I use to attract her attention? He says, try the ATM machine in the lobby. You have days like that, folks. We'll hope to end this day on a better note with all of you. First of all, before I even get into the speech, I don't know if you can read those signs. Are they washed out, or can you see them? Okay? Or can you bring them down about halfway, Bobby?
Bring the lights down.
I just half, yeah. Just a little bit, so the slides show up. You'll see the first slide has the word leadership. Some are born with it, others develop it over time. Well, I want to start, Bobby Marsh, with a disclaimer, because that presupposes that I know something about leadership, and that's really sort of a, what's the word? Yeah, that's better, Bobby. That we're here to lecture you, and I'm this leader from Oakland County. It's a little embarrassing to put that mantle on myself. I'll talk to you about some of the things we've done. You can draw your own conclusions. So I want to start with that disclaimer. I guess if you look at what we've done over the years, as Phil said, this is our 20th year. You can see some successes that, frankly, are brought about not by just Brooks Patterson. In this whole slide presentation, you'll see me frequently refer to the team, I have a simple. I'm not without some talent, but my real talent is I can recognize talent in other people, and then I can go get them and recruit them. And I think I've recruited the best team in Michigan. There's no question about that. And I put my team up against a government team across this country. For instance, when I got to Oakland County, I did my county tour the first year. I wanted to meet all the employees. As I went from the department to department, we had 4,000 employees. It took me almost 9 months to see the whole campus and meet everybody. We found out we had 200 terminals. They're basically dead terminals. There was no system in place. They weren't connected. And that was the extent of our IT program. And so I determined, even though IT is not my long suit, I'm intimidated by this, so I take Phil wherever I go. He's like American Express guy. I never leave home without him. We invested somewhere between 8 and 10 million a year for the next 10 years, and have built a system now, which, according to the Center for Digital Government, we're now the most digitally progressive county in America out of 3,000 that we're evaluating. We hold that title for 2 years running. So I think it says a lot for the team and Phil and his leadership over there. We're the only county, and budgeting is very, very tough, as you all can imagine, especially in government today with declining revenues due to the property taxes down because values are down. We devised about 5-6 years ago a 3-year rolling budget. By that I mean the new year comes in and the last year rolls off, so it's a rolling budget. So we're in balance for this current year, 2012. We're in balance for 2013. We're in balance for 2014, line item detail. We're already working on 15. Now that's unique. No other county in America has that. So we go to Wall Street every year to secure and fight for a AAA bond rating, which we've now held for 12 years. They look at that and they say, you know, that's the kind of thing, the kind of innovation we want to see other counties adopt, but we still remain the only one. We opened up our airport. We had an old airport built in the 50s out of Waterford. It's called Oakland County International. You claim international if you've got customs, and we have customs. And so we thought we were going to do it right. So we opened up the first and only green terminal in the United States in general aviation. We put a lot of effort into it. We came out as gold certified. And you come in there, it's a lesson in green technology for geothermal wells, the photovoltaic panels, and the wind spheres on the runway. And kids are coming from school to learn a little bit about green technology. And as an aside, I have a lot of fun because we found our certificate that authorizes us as an airport. Registration number 000001. We're the first certified airport in the United States. And then we found another certificate, that's 1929. Another certificate, 1930, when we had our first air show. You have to be authorized to put those shows on. Signed by Orville Wright. So we got a lot of history out there. We're the only county in America to have paid off our health care legacy costs. You hear so much about it, government today, corporations, Chrysler, General Motors, but of course, in government, all the promises we've made employees over the years that they'll get health care. Those are your legacy costs. Detroit's for something in the range of like $9 billion. The state's about $40 billion. On it goes. Well, we're the only county in the United States that's paid off that legacy cost. We did it long-term planning, started making actuarial payments that were set up about 20-some years ago, and we finally got to where it was about $650 million. We said, we can take that out. We took it out, and now we're out of the healthcare business. So you come to work for Oakland County, we'll give you healthcare while you're there, of course. But when you leave, you don't get any healthcare in retirement. You take an HSA, health savings account. We're the first ones to have done that. As all the other communities and counties around us, Wayne, Macomb, most of the counties in the state, ended the year with a deficit. We ended the year with a $201 million surplus. So when we go to Wall Street and they look at these things, I think it reflects on the leadership of my team that we've been able to do those things when nobody else has. I like being number one through the door. Let's go to the first slide, Phil. Okay, leadership. Some are born with it, others develop it over time. I'm asked all the time when I speak, mostly to schools. School kids will say, Mr. Patterson, are leaders born with it or do they acquire it? And my answer is not. I'm not trying to be less than forthright, definitive. I say no. It's really a combination. It's either one. I don't know. I can make a case for either one, that people are born with it and others acquire it or are put into a position where they have to demonstrate and exercise leadership. In your own mind, you say to yourself, you know, I'm getting better at what I do. Well, you're acquiring that leadership skills. And I'll talk about what the attributes are in just a moment. But I don't think people are just born and right there as a leader. Although it does happen, of course. Let's go to the next slide. You'll see people, we just picked out some slides. Eisenhower, Reagan, Kennedy, Mother Teresa, recent leaders, of course. You see Steve Jobs, over here Sergio Marchione, Netanyahu, and one of my favorite, Krauthammer. But they all have their different styles. I don't know that I can tell you which one of them was born with the talent to lead or acquired it in circumstances that they were facing, and all of a sudden they stepped up and said, I'm going to do something about this. Well, those are leaders, and let's see what attributes they had in common. Leaders do have things in common. Let's talk about Phil. Vision. Vision is what my friend George Bush called that vision thing. He never was able to define it. But vision is, I think, the ability to look out and say, hey, this is where I want to be. I want, in my career, or in my organization. I want to drive it to be something. And vision for me is where you want to be, and more important, how you're going to get there. You got to have a vision to make that happen. And I think the vision for me, as I drive the county operation as CEO, is to, pretty vague, maybe pretty general. I want to be the best at whatever we do. I want to be number one, whether it's IT, whether it's economic development. We got an award from President Bush for our export activities, E award. Whether it's in our budgeting, we're the only county that does it 3 year. We get the GFOA, Government Finance Officers Association, award every year for our budgeting practices. My budget director, a young lady named Lori Van Pelt, was CFO of the year from Cranes. You look at the talent we've assembled and individual honors that they've acquired. You're not going to be the best at what you can be unless you can bring in a strong team. And I think I've got the best, as I said before. Another thing about vision, not only do you have a good team, and you want to be the best in every category, and I think we're moving pretty close in most categories in government today. There's a certain thing about leaders, I think, and when it comes to vision. If you see something, and the reason I like politics so much, if you see something that's broke, you can fix it. I think even more important, if something doesn't exist, you can create it. A couple quick examples. I go to a health retreat called Pritikin down in Florida every year. I got a couple stints. I call it a health retreat. My Democrat opponents call it a fat farm, but I go down to Pritikin every year. And about 11, 12 years ago, the lecturer who was talking about the impact of a national epidemic called childhood obesity. And he gave me a statistic that absolutely just, shook me. His comment was, you got to understand, I got 9 grandkids, 1 on the way. He said, the generation of children we're raising today, in my case, my grandkids, will be the first generation in America's history not to have a lifespan as long as their parents. All attributable, of course, to the long-term impact of obesity. If you're an obese child, chances are 85% to be an obese adult. What's that mean? That means diabetes, that means stroke, that means heart conditions. I thought, wow. I mean, for the first time in recorded history, our kids' curve comes in under the age span of the parents. I came back and I talked to my team, and I said, this is unacceptable. So we came up with a program called Count Your Steps. Once a year for the month, right now we're in the program, we give out, I go to the private sector and raise the money, so no taxpayers' funds. And we buy something like 30,000 pedometers. Every 3rd and 4th grader in Oakland County gets one. And then we have the contest, Count Your Steps. And you count your steps on this pedometer, you put it in the logbook, at the end of the week you turn it over to Phil's group, we tabulate what school is doing the best, what school district is doing the best, the competition among these kids, and at the end of the month, we give out awards, whether it's a trip to the zoo, a trip to the wave pool, those are our pools, and so there's a little incentive. The kids think this is all fun, we're competing for passes. What we're doing is getting those kids off the couch, where they've taken, because of the video games now, it's something you and I didn't necessarily have when we were growing up. So that was something that didn't exist, but we created it. I think it's paying some huge dividends. They've walked, these kids, over the 11 years that we've had this contest, have walked 17 billion steps, 341 times around the world. So we know it's got to have some impact. This Automation Alley that was introduced, the creator of that happened by going to meetings like this and people saying to me back in 1998, 99, hey Brooks, some of our best positions in our company are going vacant. We can't get IT people to come to this region. Our images were not high tech. I mean, they'll go east to Boston, they'll go west to Silicon Valley, maybe Seattle, maybe, but they don't come here. And I heard that refrain over and over. So I came back to the office and we sat down, we talked about it. And we started, I hired Pat Anderson first. And Pat Anderson is an economist out of Lansing. I said, Pat, where are the high-tech jobs? Tell me. And I had an idea, and you do too. He did the research. About 6 months later, he came back with a very good report. So here's your list, Brooks. The highest ever high-tech jobs are in Silicon Valley, over 300,000. Number 2 was Boston's Route 128, about 230. And number 3 was Oakland County, 167,500. And we used the same NASIC code, so we had apples to apples to apples. Well, nobody knew that. And one main reason was when Pat used that same NASIC code, engineers at automotive R&D were considered high-tech for the first time. And if you looked under the hood of your car, under your dashboard, you got to know it's high-tech. And so we counted them, we fell into third place. But with that information, I went out and said, okay, to the businesses, we are high tech, and we damn well better start beating that drum. So I sold that opportunity to 43 companies. They were the first 43 charter members of Automation Alley. They each paid $15,000, so again, no taxpayers' funds. Today, we're up to about 1,100 companies, and we're spread over to 8 counties. Again, there was a need, and we were able to address that need by now. Automation Alley is a marketing arm for Southeast Michigan. We testify in Congress, we testify in Lansing, we do trade missions all around the world. They're going to China later this year, they're in Brazil last year. Marketing this region for what it really is high tech. Okay, what else does a leader have? A leader's got to take calculated risks. I mean, and I only say that by risk, I mean, no leadership role is easy. Whether you're in the military, you got the troops following you up the hill, whether you're in business, making decisions that could impact a multi-million-dollar result for your company, there's a lot at stake. But if you wait for always the safest answer, the chances are that those opportunities are going to pass you by. I mean, there is some urgency to make a decision in a timely way. So you're going to have to. You don't want to be crazy. You don't want to be without any checks and balances on your whole thought process. But you're going to have to take, from time to time, a calculated risk. You hear me talk about the team. This is my team. Going from left to right, Jerry Poisson, who is scary smart. And his job is, he's my top deputy, so he's number one in case I become...
He's number one?
Number one, sorry, Phil. Damn. I meant to tell you about
this. Sorry. It's good to finally know.
And as a deputy, these are all deputies, okay? They're on the same row. County exec, 5 deputies, 16 directors. And so Jerry's the go-to guy on the more complicated issues, whether it's the Cobo Hall, which is a 5-year bare-knuckle negotiation, whether it's transportation. You hear a lot about RTA, Regional Transportation Authority. Those are the things Jerry manages for me, and and I think Phil will tell you, scary smart. The guy next to him, Bob Dado, in the yellow jacket. Bob is the guru in Michigan when it comes to budgeting. A lot of what you see, the 3-year rolling budget and the AAA bond rating, comes from Bob, who's considered the finest in the state. In fact, Snyder tapped him to go to Detroit under the new consent agreement, but it was a 5-year commitment. Bob didn't want to go for 5 years. I could not afford to lose him for 5, so he'll be on that 9-member finance committee. Phil Bertolini, IT. We had 200 dead terminals, 18, 19 years ago. Today, we're considered the most digitally advanced county in America under Phil's leadership. Ken Rogers, when you start something like automation, now they got to put a guy in charge. Kenny came from the business world. I said, Kenny, this is yours. He went down there basically to get it going. He stayed. He's been down there since 1999. I say down there, we built our own headquarters in Troy. And the last guy's Matt Gibb. Matt was the township supervisor in Orion. I looked around and I needed to replace him. One of my other guys, Snyder took, it was Doug Smith. Snyder tapped Doug to come to Lansing to work in an MEDC, Michigan Economic Development Corp. There was a vacancy, so I went to the township and hired Matt, because Matt's township was really kicking butt. They were bringing in more business than anybody else. I wanted him on my team. That's the team. The two you don't see, of course, that are really integral to how we operate. It would be Lori Van Pelt, who is my director of management budget, Nancy Scarlett, HR. I'll tell you a quick story about Lori. When I took over as county exec in 92 elections, so I'm in office in 93, the prior exec had been sick for literally 2 years. So the office didn't have anybody at the helm, and things just start going haywire, as it will do without a leader exercising leadership. So we got there. We've been spending down our cash reserves, our fund equity, if you will. We had like $7 or $8 million in. You're supposed to have, according to the GFOA, Government Finance Officers, so you're supposed to hold back about 18%. Well, we well below the limit there. And so we did things quickly. We froze salaries, we froze hiring, we cut the car fleet in half. But things you would do if you want to right the ship. And within 6 months, the county government was back on firm financial footing. But during those days, we were all working hard hours. And I came to work one morning, and I parked behind the building, and I walk up the back staircase. Here comes Lori, about 10 to 8 in the morning. I said, well, Lori, you're getting an early start today. She says, I'm just going home, Mr. Patterson. I like this girl. And she was an analyst at the time. This was the bottom of the food chain. She moved up very quickly. Now she's my director of management budget. She's doing a heck of a job. I put this group together into a task force. We call it the budget task force. The new budgeting was going to become a real problem for all of us in government, including Oakland County. Even though we're a wealthy county, when you start losing your tax base, which is property tax revenues, I mean, we had to struggle. And we've lost about, what, 40-some% of our value in our property. And we lost well over $100 million in revenue, so we're going to make adjustments, folks. So the task force, I turned it over to them. They're the smartest and the best. That's those guys who tell me, give me the advice, what do we need to do? And so I really gave them sort of a carte blanche to do what they had to do to make the tough decision. Well, these bastards took my assigned car 2 years ago.
You're welcome.
Yeah. The next one is patience. And by patience, I guess we can define anything you want to, but certainly I in government, perhaps you in your respective responsibilities, you're not going to get immediate gratification on the decision you make. Like Phil was saying in his introduction, sometimes, you know, like the Chinese proverb, one generation plants the seed, the next generation enjoys the shade. You got to have some patience. You got to have some long-term lookout view, if you will, vision, like that vision thing. You cannot just make a decision and expect to have, you know, the challenge, whatever it was, resolved instantaneously. It just doesn't happen. Not in the real world, certainly not in the political world. I've got a couple of programs. One is emerging sectors, where we've looked out, my team, and tried to define what would be the new sector after automotive collapse, when Chrysler and General Motors collapsed back in 2008 and 9. Oakland County lost 60,000 jobs in 2009, 60,000. And in 2010, we had 10,200 foreclosures. So we were getting just beat up around the head and shoulders. So we looked at what things we had to do in order to survive. Well, emerging sectors, we started in 2004. And these are 10 new sectors where we think we can take the county. I can take the county. And I have nothing against automotive. My dad worked for Chrysler for 43 years, but we had all our eggs in automotive. General Motors was my largest employer. Chrysler was headquartered here. We got Lear, we got RF Meritor, Borg Warner. We got major investment in automotive. So I wanted to spread out, and the word is diversify the economic base of Oakland County. So we found these 10 sectors. You can recognize all of them: healthcare, IT, of course, is one. Alternative energy, nanotechnology, aerospace, homeland security. We picked the finance. We picked the 10 sectors. We launched it in 2004. We now have 201 companies we've brought in. They've invested about $1.9 billion in 8 years. I personally think we lost 137,000 jobs during this long, prolonged recession. Probably going to take me 20 to 25 years to replace the lost automotive jobs with non-automotive, high-tech jobs, the knowledge-based economy jobs, the long-term sustainable jobs. 25 years. Well, that defines patience, I think. We have a program called Main Street, and it's a national program. It's called the Historic Preservation Program. It's housed in Washington, D.C., not a federal program, just housed there. And back in 99 or 2000, we joined Main Street as a county. And we have 32 downtowns in Oakland County out of 61 communities. A lot of communities don't have a downtown. I live in Independence Township. There's no downtown. Phil, you live in Independence. There's no downtown. But we have 32 established downtowns. So if we do 2 a year and take them through the Main Street process, which is really a 5-year mentorship and then about another 5-year of implementation, I'm trying to average 2 a year. 2 a year divided into 32 would be a 16-year effort. Well, we've got, I think, 12 now. So we're falling behind my pace a little bit. 12 done out of 32. But you know what? Long term, you got to have patience, because at the end, when our downtowns, and you have to look at those people from Oakland County, drive through Rochester, drive through Ferndale, go to Farmington, go to Holly, Milford, for the first time, 100% occupancy downtown in their stores. Look at the impact, this metamorphosis that occurs through this effort called Main Street. But when it's done, our downtown's going to be rehabbed, rejuvenated, street planning, streetscapes, you know, all the things you see in these towns. It's going to take us, you know, about 20 years for sure to get there. But when it's done, somebody's going to look back over their shoulder and say, damn, this looks good. But I think that's what patience is all about. Delegate, you all know what that means. It's the opposite of being a micromanager. I've seen micromanagers. I've sat across tables with them. I've other elected officials, friends of mine. Everything's got to come across their desk. And they got to review every document, and that's when everything starts to back up and nothing gets done. I won't name names, you know, some of the political people I'm thinking of, just tremendous micromanagers. If you got confidence in the team, then you delegate to that team. And they come to you on policy issues. That I reserve policy to make. But the day-to-day action of getting these programs implemented and moving down the field, I got confidence in the team. Now, by policy, what is our policy on something? Okay, I have to define that because I'm the one who stands for election every 4 years. So I got to be responsible for the policies of my office. Next one, motivate. Well, I think there's several ways to motivate your people. By example, number one, I don't think anybody in my office figures that I'm a slacker. I'm there early, I stay late, I'm out literally every night, weekend speaking, and I enjoy it. I enjoy talking to new crowds, having some fun. But I think you motivate by example. If you work hard, your team work hard. But I think also something that I saw this morning. I was speaking, again, at SAE, Society of Automotive Engineers, downtown at Kobo, and I shared a platform with a guy who's incredibly good. His name is Ralph Gilles. Now, Ralph Gilles is the designer of the Chrysler 300, but now he's in SRT, sports racing, and so it includes the Viper, which is on the front page of the paper today and tomorrow. It's an incredible car, 640 horsepower, what I gotta tell you. I added to my speech after I saw him. I said, because he's a leader, and everybody in town, everybody in the country, for that matter, around the world knows Gilles. They know who he is. But what I saw about him as a leader, I added it to my notes, more than just example, it was the enthusiasm. I mean, as a leader, by the time he finished speaking this morning, everybody got out of that room and we were just absolutely excited by what Chrysler is doing, what the Viper is doing, what this new SRT brand is doing. And so I think a leader has to have genuinely that emotion and that excitement, because that will then infuse the rest of the team. Decisive. There are again some people I can think of who never make a decision because they're afraid of making the wrong decision. And my first staff meeting way back in '93, I said, if somebody comes to me, and I'm running for re-election 4 years later, so it'll be '96. If someone comes to me and said, hey boss, I never made a bad decision, I never made a mistake, I'm gonna say, well, then you never made a decision. Because all of us are going to make mistakes. We're all going to make decisions we might have made better with proper reflection. But don't come to me and tell me you never made a mistake. But I'm going to say, well, what the hell have you been doing? You know, Phil made a mistake when he took my car. He's going to pay for that. You know? But you know, welcome. But you got to be able to make a decision. And I'll mention Granholm by name. But pretty indecisive. You know, over the years she was governor. And just the opposite of the new guy. I mean, whether you like the decision that he's making them. And I can give other figures I've worked with over the years, but a leader has to make the call. If he doesn't make it, eventually that becomes the standard practice, and then the whole organization begins, I think, to weaken. Recognize that simply means recognize the team for the good work they do. When I speak in my State of the County address every year, when I speak to you, when I spoke this morning down at the SAE, I always compliment my team for the work they do. I mean, I sort of bask in the reflected glory of the effort and the success of my team. They're good at what they do. A leader, I think, recognizes the team, delegates to them, and I should add this before I turn it over to Phil, has the good sense to get out of the way. If you're going to empower somebody, if you're going to give them the responsibility to carry out the program, as I did Phil, over to the CIO, the programs we're doing, like moving into the cloud and so forth, you tell them, this is where I want to be, Phil. I want to be the first county that we're in the cloud. Hopefully you'll talk about our arrangement with the NACO. But then get out of his way. And he's the expert, he's the pro. So you recognize that team, and you certainly have the confidence in them to let them do their job. And so it really has worked well in Oakland County. I started off with some of the successes that we've enjoyed, and I will close my remarks with the fact that anything that you hear about Oakland County that you nod in agreement with and think it's innovative, creative, it was a team effort. Thank you. Phil?
Good. Thanks, Phil. So my goal now is to talk about some of the challenges we have as leaders in the world of IT, or really in managing just about anything we have to manage. I'm a true believer, though, in project management. I'm going to share with you a quick story about how much of a believer I am. So when I came over to IT in 2001, Brooks asked me to be the director of IT. I came over there and we had had a PMO in place since about 1997. And when we put the PMO in place, I was a customer of the department. I didn't like it. The reason I didn't like it is because now I had all these hurdles I had to jump and all this minutia I had to go through to get what I wanted. Not realizing, though, that I really didn't get what I wanted to begin with. Because we weren't performing as a department the way we should have been. Then when I had to come over and be the guardian of the process, I had to stop other people from gaming the system, which I was pretty good at gaming the system before I got there. So I knew all the tricks. But what happened, though, is in your life, you start to think about, what is it that drives us? What's our philosophy? What's our standards? What's our ethics? All those good things. So I used this at home. I tried this at home. I have 2 boys, young guys. They were probably 7 and 5, maybe 8 and 6 at the time. And I used to have them make a list for Santa Claus. And they were allowed to put 8 things on the list. And then if they found something else they liked, they had to knock one of the other ones off and reprioritize. I'm not joking. So my oldest, who's a very calm soul and very understanding.
Both his kids are in therapy, right?
Yeah, exactly. My oldest, who was very calm and very, very thoughtful, he would go up to the list and go, I really wanted that toy, but I have this Yu-Gi-Oh comic that I want. And so he'd cross one out and he'd put a new one in and he'd reprioritize. My youngest would go up and add a 9. And he'd start writing. I said, you can't do that. You have to prioritize. And he was, no, Santa knows me. I'm good. I'm gonna put a 9. I'm gonna get what I want. But here's the trick to the whole thing, for those of you that have young kids, then we only got them 6 of them. Because I wanted them to learn that they don't get everything in life and that they have to prioritize. And you're right, they're in therapy. So the world of leadership in IT, or whether it be project management and other types of forms, it's changing so rapidly. And what I want to talk with you is what's changed. And I had to come up with one area that I thought had changed the most, and here it is. It's communications. By the way, that's what happened to Winky.
Yeah.
We tried to. He's always wondered what happened to Winky and Wanda, the elephants. Communications is the elephant in the room. The world of communications has changed dramatically. And as leaders, we have to be able to deal with that. We have to be able to manage and lead other people at the same time communications are coming so fast at them. And their world is changing so fast around them that we have to be able to still march towards that strategic direction, right? So I looked at, what goes on in government today. We still have people that write us handwritten letters. We have people that want to email us. We have people that want to text us. We have people that want to use social media. We have people that I think want to think it and will do it. Good example, my youngest son had to sign up for a Gmail account for his school. And he was struggling with it, and I was kind of embarrassed. I was like, dude, you're my son. How can you not sign up for a Gmail account? He goes, Dad, we don't email. He's 14. They don't use email. They text each other. And he can just flip open his phone and do it. So when you're talking about communications and the world changing so fast, we have to be able to lead with it. When you talk about the world today, it's about the need for speed. Brooks talked about patience and leadership. That's very important because there are programs that have to take time to mature. But we have a population of people out there, and you probably have people you work with that want it right now. So when they want their tacos, they want internet. This is from, I believe it's from China, that they have internet. But here's where I draw the line, folks. There's no reason to be texting when you're doing this. Someone in this room's done it, so I'm not gonna say anything. But it is about the speed of communications. And we have to adjust our leadership style to deal with that. Let me give you a good example. And it talks about the speed of how information travels. Does everybody remember the plane that crashed into the river? Do you realize the first account of that plane crash was on Twitter? And was a gentleman who was on a ferry boat watching the plane land in the river. And then the media contacted him to get his eyewitness account of what took place. Okay, now, we're all leaders. We're trying to figure out how do we manage the communication style, and how do we manage what happens to us? How do we manage our projects? How do we manage our product that we have to provide? And we have communications taking place before we can even settle the argument or settle the conversation down. This is the world we live in. And we have young people entering our workforce that's the way they believe it should happen. How many people believe longevity in work today is 10 years? How about 5 years? How about 3 years? 3 to 5 years is where the majority of young people believe their longevity is going to be. So as companies and as leaders, we're going to bring these young people in, we're going to train them and invest in them, and then they're going to be gone 3 years later. Now, for me, I was born in a very blue-collar automotive home, and I learned that you had to earn what you get, and you work hard, and your employer will take care of you, and you work your way up the ladder, and longevity is a 20, 25-year commitment. You're going to do the best for your company and for the citizens of your county, and you're going to do everything you have to have. These people don't believe that anymore. And the environment in which we lead in doesn't believe that anymore. So we have to adjust our leadership style. So one of the ways that we can adjust for this is that we have to be involved in the communication stream. We as leaders have to be on Twitter. Brooks is on Twitter. He tweets quite regularly. 140 characters, some of the stuff that he can get into 140 characters amazes me, but he does it. But he's out there communicating because there's that whole population of folks that's how they get it, right? So as leaders, we have to be able to manage that inside our workplace and in our own lives. I've always heard the term, they talk about children that type POS on the screen. Anybody know what that means?
Parent over shoulder.
Parent over shoulder. Wow, that was good. Man. I always told my sons, if I ever see POS on the screen, we're going to have a problem. So they come up with some other code, I'm sure. All right, they're smart. They know what they're doing. But again, we have to lead. So also, I want to talk about the speed at which movements are created. Because in government, we have a number of issues. I'll give you a good example. We had someone that saw a snake in one of our parks. Not unusual, but they thought it was a more venomous snake. So they started out onto Facebook and Twitter saying that the Oakland County parks are full of snakes. Well, we had created a program at the county we call Net Volunteers. Because there's over 300 channels of social media, we can't manage them all. So we started enlisting volunteers from the general public to speak on our behalf. We bring them in, we train them, and they're out there watching the message boards, watching social media, and they're talking for us. Our Net Volunteers jumped onto the problem. They got out there and talked about, no, the parks are not full of snakes. And by the way, here's some links to tell you what's going on with our parks and about the snake that was found, and it's not venomous. The whole argument and the whole conversation did what? It died. But what if we weren't out there? What if leaders, we had said, social media is bad. We should just not do it because they're going to say bad things about us. They're going to talk about us, and we're not going to be able to control it. Before we had our first Facebook site in Oakland County, there were 4 Facebook sites out there that had our county seal on them, and were doing business as us. So we said we couldn't have that. So we immediately shut those down. If you have to threaten them with legal action, that works.
It works.
But you shut them down, and then you get out there and you become the authoritative source. Because you know what? The world's not going to stop. This technology is not going to go away. And we have to figure out how to use it. So let me talk about another story that I thought was very interesting. It's about the speed at which movements are created. Did anyone hear about the gentleman that was on United Airlines? And he was a musician. And he had a guitar with him. And he was looking out the window of the plane. And he watched them handle his guitar and break the neck off his guitar. So he jumped up in the plane, ran up to the flight attendant and said, "They broke my guitar, I saw it." She goes, "Well, I can't take that complaint. You're going to have to go to the gate." So they let him out of the plane. He runs to the gate. And the person at the gate says, well, I really can't take that complaint. You're going to have to wait till you land and go to the airline office. So he flies to his destination. He lands. The airline office is closed. So the next day, he comes back to the airport to report his guitar is broken. It's over 24 hours since the incident took place, and the airline told him, too bad. We're not going to fix your guitar. So he said something to them. He said, you know what? I'm going to write a song. And I'm going to put it out on YouTube. And my goal is to have 1 million people see this song on YouTube about your airline in the first year. So here's what happened. He wrote the song. It's actually kind of funny. If I was at United Airlines, I would never let this happen. You got to act a lot quicker. So he wrote the song, he put it out on YouTube, and here's what took place. He had 1.6 million views in 4 days. Now my slide's a little dated. I know it's over 10 point, but he had 10.5 million views as of sometime last year. 10.5 million people watched a song on YouTube about how they broke his guitar and wouldn't make it right. Somebody lost their job over that. But you know what? Whether they were out there or not, this was going to happen. When we're out there as Oakland County, trust me, when people are out there having conversations about us, we are engaging with them. We've employed crowdsourcing, where we throw ideas out to the public and let thousands of people jump on the idea and bring us back nuggets of wisdom. Because if you think about it, Brooks talks about our budget task force. We have, what, 7 folks in the budget task force. If we throw an idea to our budget task force, we get 7 opinions and 7 ideas. Throw it out to the public, you get thousands of ideas and thousands of opinions. That's very powerful, and it's a very powerful way to go ahead and engage with the citizen. And that's what we do. But understand that movements are happening. So many of you are involved in many different industries. Understand that people are out there talking about you one way or another. It's how you engage them that's going to matter how you are successful into the future. There's also the issue about how the speed at which leaders rise. And Brooks talks about the fact that he loves the fact that Oakland County is #1 in many different ways. We do too. And at IT, we try to be #1 in all kinds of different ways. He talked about our cloud initiative. We have a cloud initiative where we're going to provide, we've been providing shared service technologies to multiple governments for 35 years. It started with the mainframe, the original cloud. But what we're doing now is we're positioning applications that will not only share inside Oakland County, but we're going to share them anywhere in the state of Michigan, anywhere in the country, really anywhere in the world that they want to use the technology. We're going to charge a fee for that, and that fee is then going to help us recoup our cost of our technology and help us manage our environment longer term. So we understand what it's like to be out there and be a leader in shared services, which in government today, Brooks talked about the fact that we've lost roughly 40% of our property values. That directly translates into the loss of tax dollars. And when you lose tax dollars, you lose funding. We have to find new ways to do business. And one of the ways that governments can use technology that they couldn't use before is to be able to share it with others. And that's our goal. Another project that we started is our NACO application store, the National Association of Counties, which is a nationwide association that has all the counties in the United States as part of it. We are building an application store where major counties can put their application data into the store, and all the counties in the United States can say, if I'm looking for a business intelligence system, I search on business intelligence, up comes all the counties that are doing it, those that might have it at end of life, or those that are out seeking partners to do it, and then we can collaborate and leverage our cost of technology across the entire nation. We partnered with NACO, they're actually helping us fund it, and then we are going to drive that through our G2G Cloud Solutions, which is the new brand name for our cloud at Oakland County. So we're excited about that. And those are opportunities that if we didn't have the leadership and vision of where Brooks wants to take Oakland County, we might not have gotten there today. We might have been worried about just keeping the business going, or just managing what we have. In tough economies, people hunker down. You've heard that, right? They just close ranks and they stop doing stuff. We've been putting out innovative technologies through this entire economic downturn. because we realize that it's strategic to the future of our county, and it's strategic to our ability to serve our citizens that much better. Okay? But here's my example of Leaders Rise. When did you first hear about Twitter? Anybody remember? How long ago? 3, 4 years ago? Did anybody think they were ever going to use it? I went to the park. Send. I drove my car down the block. Send. I mean, that's what it was like at first, wasn't it? But now, there's whole media campaigns around Twitter. There's company media strategies that are centered around this technology. But as fast as you can get to this technology and put it out there, there are people that are retweeting it. We did this with one of Brooks's tweets once, I forget the actual tweet. We put it out there and thousands of people picked it up and retweeted it. In a matter of minutes.
Must have been my weight loss diet.
Was that it? Yeah. Maybe it was that whole working out thing. Yeah. But understand, as these technologies are there, and you can use them, many of them are at little or no cost, and you can bring up that knowledge base and that ability to communicate. Facebook, what did someone say? It'd be the 3rd largest country behind China and India? Facebook? Amazing, right? It started on the campus of Harvard, right? So those technologies change in their speed. But one thing I want to mention before I leave this slide. As fast as you can rise, you can fall. Leaders have to make tough decisions. They have to be decisive. They have to be ready to stand up. They have to do a number of things. They have to have vision, right? And Brooks talked about all those attributes. But as fast as you rise, you can fall. Because that's the world we live in today. So also, you know, the young people today, wasn't there a big controversy recently where companies were asking young people for the passwords to their Facebook accounts as a condition of employment? So they could go read their Facebook accounts to see what kind of person they are. Could you imagine? All I know is I'm glad there was no Facebook or YouTube when I was young and in college. I would have done something stupid, I just know it. But our young people today have to be so much more careful. Many people today, there's people, I'm 49 years old, many of my friends are out there on Facebook and they're saying some stuff that I'm like, really? Why are you doing that? Because the digital footprint that we have now never leaves us. So remember that when you're leading other people, you're leading the strategies of your company, or you're trying to figure out what's that next direction to go in, and you're using these technologies, remember, once you put it out there and someone grabs it and sends it to someone else, it's out there forever.
Reminds me, when I was a kid in grade school, the principal would say it's going to be on your permanent record.
Was that before the pandemic?
Oh, yeah. Oh, no.
Yeah. So understand that's what we're talking about when I'm talking about leaders that rise and fall. So I have some takeaways for my part, and then Brooks has a piece that he's going to help us close with, and I think we have a little bit of time for questions as well. First, a leader has to have the guts to stick out of the crowd. You know, when you first start your careers, you get in with a group of people, and they think, you know, you're all like buddies, right? You all start together, and then you get promoted and they don't, and you're not their buddy anymore. You're kind of their acquaintance. Now you're making decisions about their lives as managers. So be it. A leader has to realize that they have to make those tough decisions. They have to be willing to stick out of the crowd. Make the tough decisions, I talked about that. Manage your digital footprint. How many of you have Googled yourself? For those of you that have not, why not? Go out there and Google. Put your name in there. You could be being talked about in different social media sites or on different platforms and you don't even know it. The other thing you can do is go out there and set a Google alert for yourself, and there's other alerts from other places, but set a Google alert so every time your name pops up online, it sends you an alert so you can go look at what they're saying about you. Why is that important? You don't know what they're saying about you until you go out there and look. So manage that footprint, and as leaders we have to know that. Find the right mentor. This is my mentor right here. Don't look away. When he brought me in, I was pretty young. I was kind of wet behind the ears. I actually ran the equalization division for the county. I was the property tax assessor. That's what I usually, I don't get that anymore.
You don't want to Google yourself.
Yeah, don't Google yourself on that. But when he asked me to be the IT director, I said, you know, Brooks, and I was brutally honest right away. I said, I'm not a technical person. I have a telecommunications degree, but you know, I'm more on the user side of things. I'm more on how to use the technology. And he said, that's exactly what I want. If I wanted a technology person, I have a whole building full of those people. What I need is someone that can help me get people to use the technologies we build for them. So when after that day, and we had met and worked together on many different projects before that, it was an eye-opener for me because he had a strategy back in end of 2000 he had for the county about the use of technology and where we were going to take the county. And it was very visionary. You talk about CIOs, if you think about 2000, there wasn't a lot of talk about what a CIO was back in the year 2000. I mean, they were there, but they weren't thought of at the highest levels of the organization. He had that vision for the county. So he's been my mentor for years, and what I've learned is exactly what he talked to all of you about, is how to delegate, how to vision and be strategically determine what the direction is going to be, and then recognize and work with the team and build a good team around you, because we're only as good as the people that we put on our team to help us get there. And the last thing, get it done. It's about performance. It's about wins. It's about making sure that you have manageable deliverables that you can give to people and show that you have been successful. And sometimes it's not always successful. We understand that. But it better be less unsuccessful than more and more successful. Boy, that was weird.
Well,
that was a tough sentence. And my wife's an English teacher. She'd be really upset with me right now. So get it done. Okay, Brooks, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, takeaways. Another thing a leader does, a leader plagiarizes when appropriate. And I picked this up off the internet. I did not create this. The 5 most important words, you did a good job. The 4 most important words, what is your opinion? The 2 most important words, thank you. The single most important word, we, and the least important word is I. I saw that on the internet, and when I was surfing. Hey, how about that? And I really do think that's how you manage your team and how you motivate them. I got out of my way. When I was a prosecutor in my other life for 16 years, I had a theory, adopted a theory then, and I still abide by it today. My guys busted their humps when they go to court, and we had a high-profile murder case that we lost. And there was a lot of reasons why the jury came back not guilty. I went out and got a bottle of Cuddy Jack. That's what the lawyer drank. I put it on the test. He said, what's that for? I said, it ain't always, the win. It's the effort. You got to recognize it. So I went on my way to let him know that I wasn't upset with the loss. I mean, it was a travesty, but not with his effort. He did his best, and I guess that's all I could ask. So throughout my career, I try to recognize people by all this stuff here, but you can do it in different ways. Everybody calls the guy who catches the ball and scores a touchdown. I like to call the guy who fumbles and maybe loses the game. His phone's not ringing off the hook. But I think that really sort of motivates him to come around the next time and do an even stronger job. And this is stuff I just plagiarized. But I think the point here is your team needs to be recognized and needs to be thanked. And any level of appreciation will generate a whole lot of paybacks. So that's my takeaways.
And we are a team. We've been a team for years. We'll continue to be a team and support each other. Some would say we're closer.
We're coming out right now, folks.
Yeah. You were here when?
You can kill that thing.
Yeah, but thank you all.
Thank you very much.